Hello.
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 Hello. Hi. Hello. Oh, it's recording.
So we're here. I have one of my friends, Lauren, and my other friend, Wendy, here with me today to talk a bit. Hi. Hey. Lauren.
Hey. Hi.
That's so you. Okay. So we're here. We're obviously going to have a nice time, fun time here. I brought them on because they are actually new moms and two of my best friends. And I wanted to talk to them about friendship and being a new mom and all the fun things that go with it. So it'll be really cool.
Woo.
Woo. Okay, so a little background. What were you going to say, Lauren?
So pumped.
We know each other for now 10 plus years. We discussed that. It's got to be over 10 years. After school, so after college, we all met at our first job. We worked in media. We did a lot of fun things together. So we've known each other through our first work, our second jobs, third jobs, moving all around, family and friends, existential questions, dating, everything.
Yeah.
So it's been a journey.
And I just want to
Yes.
give a little shout out that I would not have my son, Sky, if it wasn't for Julia, because Julia was there when I met my husband, and I wouldn't have gone.
Story.
Yeah,
that is a fun story, and we are probably going to tell that in the shortest version possible. But that is
real quick.
But
But
you have to.
Yeah, we will. Background is we've known each other for a long time. So we know a lot about each other. We know a lot about each other's families, what we've been through, where we're at. But when, people change and lifestyles change, I personally am still single, so I do not have a child. So
a child.
I'm childless at the moment. So when there's big life changes, things in your 20s change a lot. But I will say, to give both of you credit in terms of when you both did find your husbands and get married, I have to say, in terms of friendship with us, I always felt like you guys were the same. And I like your husbands,
Go us.
which is like, yeah. And I like your husbands, which is obviously a bonus and a great thing. But I did feel like, this is before child, right? So you're just married. Things do change. So your priorities change. You have to go to other family things and things get busy, and that's fine. But this is pre-child. So you still had a lot of time to socialize and be with your friends,
Right.
I would say, unless you want to disagree with me.
Nope.
No, that's
Even more
that's
so.
accurate. AF.
Yeah. My point being is I would like to give you two credit. I don't know if I've told you, but I do feel like you have remained in that period. Still felt like I had my friends. There are people that get into relationships, and there's other types of people, and how they function in relationships is very different. But you guys function as very independent women in your own right. And even though, it's an added bonus, you have you both have wonderful husbands and wonderful families. And I still felt like I maybe saw you, if you looked at a watch, a little less, but I felt very strong in our friendships. And it was just like an added bonus. Nothing felt like, oh my God, the world has completely frozen over and I'm never going to see them again or whatever.
Right.
I still don't feel that way, just to preface that now, even though you're kids.
I was waiting for that.
No,
Now
you guys suck.
And now they're a distant
all
memory.
I've been waiting to tell you this on a podcast that I hate you both now.
Breaking the news.
So anyway, so now you guys have kids. Which is amazing. So the two of you, in terms of a timeline for people, both had your first child about a year ago. Mm-hmm. Only a month or two apart?
We're a month.
5 weeks.
They're 5 weeks
exactly
apart.
5 weeks.
Which was wild because I remember being at the restaurant. I was already pregnant, and I was 3 months pregnant, 4 months pregnant. Finally came out of, I don't know, very dark moment because I had really bad morning sickness, which is not morning sickness.
It's all day.
It's just all day,
all day,
sickness.
all week, all month, all
it's
year.
It's literally for 2.5 months. I don't think I could leave the bed and function. But anyway, so made it out first time. And we all went with another friend of ours, Amy, who also is a big part of this group. But and I said, I was like, tell me about your cocktails that are non-alcoholic. And then Wendy was like, yeah, I will also be having a non-alcoholic beverage because I am pregnant. And I was like, we all I think started crying. It was really emotional,
instant.
And it was a moment. And I was really I was personally like thrilled because I was like, oh my God, someone's going to be going through this with me. And I'm going to, and like we have, I think like our friendship got stronger, like too, because we've been able to rely on each other and ask each other, hey, does this happen to you? Like, okay, do they do this? Like what state, like, you know, it's just been nice to have.
Absolutely.
It's nice. I feel like I have a good mix of mom and non-mom friends, and that keeps me like sane. Yeah. You need to have like a little bit of
perspectives are also good too. You know, it's like sometimes you're, you know, with your baby and you're like, okay, let me ask my mom friend. But then it's sometimes, you know, your non-mom friends also are like, well, have you thought about it this way? And it's like,
because we have no holds barred. We'll tell you whatever we think.
Right. Yeah. You're like from a total third party. Yeah. So it's been, but I would echo that Lauren and I have, you know, we always had a strong friendship, but it's been so like amazing having you to just be a soundboard and
here today.
Oh my God. I know. I actually almost started tearing up thinking about the restaurant again. I was like, oh my God. Like,
I know. Yeah.
And that was a great day. And I just felt like I just didn't feel alone anymore. Like that's how I personally felt. I was like, and because
you guys
are a month apart, like a month and a week apart. You said 5 weeks.
I remember because it's you're 10-1 and
I'm 10-9 and you're 11-16. Oh, 16.
Okay, so exactly 5 weeks.
When you become moms, you also know exact dates.
Yes.
We get
exact inches, everything.
Weeks.
Yes.
It's
my
weird.
baby is about 37.357 weeks old.
If I do that, you have permission to slap me in the face.
Good. When you have your second,
well, when you know, when I'm saying like, you know, she's like 158 weeks, you have permission to be like,
what's seriously, okay, let's take a moment. What is the cutoff?
I don't know.
That's a good question. I would say after 2 years, I'm going to cut it off.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even say.
Sorry, after a year, I would cut it off.
Yeah, but then they change so much between one. I used to be the same way where you're like, why are you saying that? And actually, we had a friend who was visiting the other week who was like, what does 7 months mean? Just say they're like not a year yet. And I was like, yeah, but between, 6 months and 10 months, they're totally different humans, you know? So that's why I get it now. So we'll see. Actually, that's, both Reese and Sky aren't quite a year yet. So maybe we won't feel that way going into the between year and 2. We'll see.
Yeah.
But I hear
TBD.
people still doing it. So I'm assuming they're doing it for
so,
a reason.
Yeah. I guess it's true. There's a lot of things I'll say that like I look at very differently now that I am a mom as to when I wasn't a mom. And I'd be like, why would you do that? And I'm like, oh, okay, that totally makes sense. And I probably shouldn't talk crap about
other moms.
In some cases, actually, like I think it's validated because there are things that I know I just won't do. Yeah. But I think at the same time, like there's a lot of stuff now that I do take a step back and I'm like, okay, I shouldn't have judged that situation.
You get humbled real fast.
Completely.
We all do in every aspect of life. Motherhood, you go into a new job, you go into whatever, and you're like, oh, I could have done that with like my hands tied behind my back. And you're like, oh no, I could not have done that.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
It's very eye-opening.
Timeline. All right. So like a year ago, you guys are in your early 30s, we'll say, for everyone. Just to give a little background of like where we're all in life. We're all pretty much around the same age. Me and Lauren are the oldies.
We're like a month apart though.
But we're a month apart. Yeah, that's true.
Like 3 weeks or something.
Yeah, very close.
Yeah.
So love the story of when you did tell us about you being pregnant. I definitely cried. So then in terms of timeline, that's a big shift, right? Like in terms of friendship, right? So now you're in a whole new state. Like, let's talk about the practicalities, right? So like, not drinking 1 and not drinking 2. Yeah. At the time I was I was still drinking more than I drink now. Yeah. But my point being is not just the drinking, it's just more socializing and how things start to shift, right? You're pregnant. It's a physical labor, literally. So you're going through a lot physically, hormonally, mentally, emotionally, getting ready. I mean, and physically, you're probably, your body is functioning differently than people who are not pregnant. Right. So things are going to change. Did you find any sort of fears within yourself about how you would relate to your friends or what would happen to your friendships? Or did you not think about it and everything was just fine and smooth sailing because the baby wasn't born? For me, from my perspective, still being like the single whatever, I still felt good. Like I still felt like you guys were still, again, and maybe it's a testament to who you just are. And I know that not everyone experiences that. And I'm sure there will be other people as I go through my life where if I'm still single, not in that time frame or life change, there probably will be people that somewhat disappear and go through that differently. So much was going to change for you, right? You know, in terms of your friendships or even your relationships with like family members, did anything change? Were you afraid of anything? Were you excited about like any of those?
I would say the thing I was a little bit nervous about overall is just the ability to go out and have a good time, because it was very much a part of life to, you know, work hard, go out with my friends, go to music festivals, you know, stay out late. I would say I wasn't as concerned about my friends, you know, any issue with my relationships, because both of you and all my other friends are just they're the loves of my life at my core. So I knew that they weren't going anywhere. It was more my ability to participate and to also like have that ability to just, because I think it's important to your mental health too, to be able to go out and, you know, let loose and be with your friends. So that was what even especially when I was pregnant, you know, I would want to go out with them, and then I'd be like, okay, I can't stay up. Like I need a shot of tequila to keep me up. Right. Like, so I would say that was the aspect that kind of threw me, and, you know, was an adjustment, and that I was a little nervous about like, how am I going to get through this?
And how am I going to get my like fix? Because I'm still a human.
Right.
I'm still someone who is social.
Yes.
That's not going to change. Right. And how do you adjust to that? I see your face.
Yeah, no. Well, no, I mean, that's wild, because you don't think about that, right? When you look at your own mom. Like when I look at my mom,
they've never gone out and socialized. What are you talking about?
I'm like,
you
guys
have been here in the city.
Love it.
Real Housewives right here.
But I feel like, you know, you don't think about that, and then like, I mean, for the first like 4 months, I think I was so sick I didn't want to like do anything anyway, so I was kind of just like in a state of survival mode of just get through the day. And then when kind of like made it out of there and saw a glimmer of hope and light,
and Jesus
as I look
at
Jesus.
I can't right now.
It really is like so focused. Anyway,
so good.
But just knowing that, like, I guess coming out of that, I was excited to see friends again. I think like going out to that dinner was like or lunch. I think lunch turned into dinner. I think we're out for like, I don't know, like 10 hours.
As per usual.
And that's the other thing too. Like I love spending like a lot of time with my friends. I feel like I'm one of those people, and I think my daughters picked this up, but like I'm one of those people that doesn't want the good times to end. So it's always good to just like be out with everybody. And I think I don't know, I was afraid. I don't know. I was so afraid of being pregnant in itself that I think that took up so much fear that I didn't even think about. I kind of just always felt like my friends were always going to be there. I was like, my parents have friends. Like, so it was more it was more or less their relation to you versus you relating to the rest of the world again. Yeah. Like in this new state where you're now maybe the one who has to like go home early. Yeah. Or who obviously is not drinking, who is, has to prioritize doctor's appointments or, you know, work and becomes a little crazier because you have the doctor's appointment, you know, things like that. So doctor's appointment. I mean, I was scared of work because I had just started a job in December and I had to tell them in January that I was pregnant because I was so sick all the time. That must have been really, really. That was my fear, I think, at the time. I wasn't afraid of anything. I was afraid of, I just started this new job. I'm really happy with this new job, you know. Yeah. People tell you it takes years to get pregnant. And I got pregnant in like 5 seconds. So I was like, oh, okay. You are one of those. I do remember. I do. Because girls talk about everything. Sorry, Dale. But I do remember, like, you know, I knew kind of you were excited to like try to have a child. Yeah. And in your head, you're like, oh, this is going to take so long because obviously I'm not a doctor. Everyone's story is different, but you were one of those where it was like, yeah. So, okay. So beginning of pregnancy, what were the physical fears? Cause I'm terrified.
I mean, like literally just losing the baby, honestly, is the scariest thing. Right. So you just have this
look, well, we're gonna cry. We're not going there.
No, but like it's true. Yes, it's real.
Yes.
You know, you find out you're pregnant, and then the whole time there's this underlying stress of, you know, I really hope that they'll make it through at the end of the day. And you get to that 12-week mark, you get to that 16-week mark, and I think what is interesting that one thing I learned going through it is, you know, when you're working and you're going through that and you have the stress of work or you have the stress of just anything going on in life, you then realize that stress could be going to your baby, right?
Right, because it's not just you. You are now literally one with this child. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So everything that you're doing is affecting somebody else.
Exactly. And that's where the mom guilt starts too.
Okay. I hear you.
Should I have that second cup of coffee to help me get through the work day? You know, could that be affecting him? And I would say that's a big challenge that, you know, I would say a few months, probably like 5 months in, I was like, okay, I can balance this. I know what I'm doing, you know, I know ways to separate myself from work. You know, if my performance isn't as good this year, like that's okay. Like I'm not going to let the stress but that's a hard mental thing to really work through.
With. Yeah. Well, also I think in our generation as well, I think that generally, you know, we grew up like you can do anything, which is great, but with a high achievement level put on us. So like we want to do really well, but because inherently we are intelligent, we are driven, we do want to do well. And this is the big, you know, elephant in the room of like, can you do it all? And I'm going to say no, to be honest with you. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in a very positive way of taking the burden off of yourself.
Right.
Because willpower is a limited source, right?
100%.
You don't have unlimited willpower. So it kind of just puts a burden on you that you should be able to do XYZ while doing the other XYZ thing and the other thing all at the same time. No, life is about prioritizing. Life is about figuring out what makes you happy and makes you tick and prioritizing those things and what are healthy, what match your values. It's complicated, right? But I can see how being a new mom, like you just started, Lauren, you just started a new job when you realized you were pregnant. And you with work as well, like you must have had to work through that. I personally, obviously, am single, so I haven't had to work through that.
But the thing is, don't disparage that because, and we'll probably get to this later, but the hormone aspect is also something that I think we've talked about that I wasn't aware of. And I think we as women all deal with that in our own way. You know, everybody has different, you know, whatever birth control they choose to be on or not be on, or, you know, and I would say that is something that not only affects a woman going through pregnancy and, you know, having a baby, but also just women in general that we're all starting to kind of realize, like it's coming to fruition and talking. We're talking about it. It's like,
wow,
I
just blew my mind a little
today,
bit.
Right? Like,
you're so
I don't think in the 50s they were talking about
they're like,
that.
they're just crazy bitches. Like, no, there's an actual reason why this is happening. We're not just like psycho.
Right.
There's an actual physical thing going on that affects the emotional mental state.
Exactly.
And I think that even just, I mean, I feel like we're very lucky, right? Like we got to work from home.
Right. I know.
So true.
I have conversations with like my mom and actually my husband's stepmom too, like about the days that they used to work and like, you know, even like childcare and like just being in a completely different boat. And I think about, oh my God, what would I have done? What would I have done if I had to get up out of bed every day and actually go to work when I had that level of morning sickness? I took my laptop into bed a few days because I was just so sick and so afraid. I didn't want to call out. Like I was, again, this was still, I have not even like told work yet. I was like, I'm still trying to like, you know, prove myself. I need people to know that I'm a reliable, you know, person. And, it was very stressful.
What's crazy though, I will say, is that I bet somehow you would be able to do it.
You would.
Because that's what I've realized too. Somehow women just
do it.
I don't get obviously like, and I feel that way too. I'm always like, how could I have commuted every day? And I didn't have that same level of morning sickness, but like, I don't know, somehow I feel like women just
do.
Get it done.
Do it. And I'm like, what?
Get it done.
My mom tells me stories of being on the subway and like actually feeling like she's going to pass out. Like actually like, you know, had a stranger help her like on the train one time because she had blacked out and like she couldn't like see what she was doing. And I'm like, oh my God, that's terrifying. And you're like pregnant. And like, you know, I find that sometimes people are very receptive and kind to pregnant women. And then there's other people that could care less. And they're like, okay, well, you're just society. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, you know, I'm not carrying like a 20-pound balloon right now, but it's totally fine. So
no, I get it. So yeah, it's just being like, you know, first pregnant, you guys are still working, like you're driven. I'm saying like you're driven, you want to do well in work, but then there are these new factors that have come into your life that are going to start affecting. And like Wendy, you were saying how you had to just kind of come to terms with that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, that's okay. Again, we all, and this is what is, you know, life is constant change. So where you are today could be different tomorrow, right? Your priorities can shift, your values can shift. And I think we need to keep that space and room for ourselves to allow that change to happen, right? Like, so it's just taking that burden, I think, that everything at all times has to happen. You know, it's not going to.
And that's what's like amazing about friends that you have been friends with forever. Because, you know, you think about in our early 20s, or even some of my closest friends are high school friends, and you know, you're kind of all on the same path at that point. You're like, okay, we're all going to college, like we're all going to try and get a job. You know the next step, right?
Even through your 20s,
even kind of through your 20s.
You know, you're an outlier. You get married when you're in your 20s, which feels so young now, but
but even
still
them, right,
on the same path.
If you do get married in your 20s, you know, they go on that branch out there, right? But it's like you really start to see all the branches go in different directions, right? Like some people get married, some people are still single and figuring, you know, or don't want to get married.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you look at Sex and the City, it's like, look at Samantha versus Miranda.
Yeah.
So, and that just kind of speaks to, you know, a lot of the changes that happen. And, you know, that's why the divorce rate is 50%, right? Like, it's like people change, like you just said, it's, you know, one day, things can from one day, and we learn this with babies, it's like from one month to the next, so much changes. You think you figured them out, and nope, they just throw another curveball. So and that's just a testament to you know, certain friends that like at your core, like you both, you know, that you know will always be there, and no matter where on that branch, how far out someone goes, you need those people that will understand that someone's going through something, or, you know, whether it's pregnancy, whether it's, you know, a breakup, whether it's, you know, a challenge with drugs or alcohol, whatever it is.
Right. I think the most beautiful thing about certain friendships is the ability for you to give people the chance to change, and give people the chance and the compassion and the grace to become the best version of themselves. Like you're saying, it's just having those friendships where, I mean, I've had specific friendships in my life where I may go weeks without talking to someone, but I don't think twice about it.
Right.
Because it's so deep and so real and so authentic that there's zero judgment in that friendship.
Yeah.
And you do have to tend to friendships like you tend to any relationship. I'm not saying you don't, but like you said, when you get into now we're in our 30s and those branches of friendships start shooting off into different directions. When they start shooting off in different directions, like you guys are new moms, I'm still single, doing different things, life does get a little more difficult to see each other and to talk regularly. Like you said, when you were on the same path, when you were in your 20s, when you're on that path, you know, it's pretty set, and it's pretty, you know, people might go off and travel, people might go into different relationships or whatever it is, but you're still somewhat in the headspace of like, we're doing the same thing here.
Right.
You know, so it doesn't feel as like an existential crisis. I think once you hit that point with the family starting and things like that, that for me can feel like an existential crisis, amongst other things.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just, it hits people differently, I think. And again, it depends on the friendship too, right? Like with you guys, I don't feel like negative towards it.
I mean, you
know what
let
I'm
us
saying?
know. If
Well,
you do.
obviously.
Yeah.
But I'm saying I don't
let it
feel-
all out here, you know?
No, I don't feel negative towards it with you guys. But in all honesty, yeah, things are different.
Yeah, they are.
And I'm not saying that in a bad way. And
No.
we're here to be open and honest and talk about it. I'm just saying things when you get to this stage in life are different and can cause internal angst.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's like a bad thing, but it does cause you to think about where you are in life. So me as a single person, yeah, it has opened my eyes to where am I in life? What are my goals? What do I want? Which is actually all positive things because I should be thinking about these things. But it is a very interesting time of life for friendships when the families and the babies start happening. I do think that is an interesting time for everyone involved.
100%.
You know?
I don't even think things really changed, to be honest, when I got married.
Yeah, that's what I was
Like,
saying before.
Married, like, and like I felt like I was like, hey, yeah, like Dale, I'm going out to the bars. Like, see you tomorrow. And he'd be
Right.
like, all right, cool.
Right,
you know,
right.
and like that was always our relationship. I've always been, I think, someone who likes to kind of like do my own thing as well. And I had the freedom to do that. And I think a large part as to what you were saying before about like, you know, with us, right? Like you feel good about us and I feel good about us because I have chosen friends in my life that do that for me. Like that are, you know, open and honest and also like can give me a moment, you know?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
you know, like you're an understanding friend. You're an, like, you know, I'm looking at both of you right now.
Oh my God, her
You're
eyes
very
are
understanding.
looking mine and they're looking at Wendy's eyes.
Whereas, you know, you grow out of certain people at a certain point in your life and say like these,
which is fair.
You know, and that happens. And sometimes it's a good thing. And sometimes you have people you grow out of because, you know, that friendship no longer served you, you know, in a way that you needed. You grew up. And I think I've chosen a lot of the people that are in my life to this day are people that I chose to have in my life. And I think will always be there for me, despite whether or not we may go like weeks without a text message back and forth to each other. And will tell you, I genuinely sometimes like think, and I'm like, oh my God, I haven't talked to Julia in like 2 weeks. Yeah. I'm like, I mean, you know, you have Instagram, right? So everybody's like, our main form of communication is sending memes.
The memes
which keeps it a little bit it's
nice.
It is nice
really
because
nice.
it's like, okay, they're alive. Like, you know,
they're alive. Thank the Lord.
They're there. Like, you know, oh, she didn't, you know, die of exhaustion because she hasn't slept in like 2 weeks. But you know, like I think having that too is a little bit of a sign of life, but also at the same time, like I will go at certain points and be like, oh my goodness, I haven't talked to Julia, and then it'll just be like, hey, how are you? And there's no weirdness about it. Not with me. And like I think that goes like Wendy, I'll text you at it and be like, hey, so have you started like brushing Sky's teeth yet? Like,
oh,
you know, like
don't bring that up.
And I feel like, you know, I feel comfortable enough and I don't think everybody always has that with their friends. And I feel like I'm a very lucky person that I have friends that if I don't speak to them for like a couple weeks and out of the blue, I'm like, hey, you know,
hey, guess what I ate for lunch
guess
today?
what I did? Yeah, exactly.
Literally,
hey, I walked
Lauren,
down the wrong block for like 3 blocks and don't know
Lauren
where I am.
Like 2 days ago, and I got out of the subway. I forgot where I was going. And I was like, oh yeah. All I texted her was, I just walked two blocks in the wrong direction, and she knew exactly what I was talking
And that's
about.
always been the
No
friendship,
context
no
I
matter
love that.
what. Like I think that's also like, so I think it's, you know, to anyone who's listening, like if you don't have friends, I think that are giving you that grace or that
grace is a huge thing,
you know, or giving you or being accepting of, hey, this is where I am in my life and this is what I'm doing. Drop them.
Drop them like it's hot.
Drop them like a hot mic.
No,
you know what I mean? Like
seriously.
it doesn't make sense to keep people in your life that
Quality
don't
over
serve you.
quantity.
And
It's too
that's
short.
with that's with friends, that's with boyfriends, that's with even family too. If there's family that just is not healthy and they're not there for you and supporting you, I think in some of the moments, like, I mean, being pregnant, I think for me was just one of the most crucial parts of my life where I say like, who really was there for me during that period of my life. And you look at that and go, okay, these are people who are going to stick. Because if someone sticks with you through pregnancy, like
You're good.
I
You're
think
good.
you're good.
Yeah. No, I get it. So here we are, you guys. You are all both beautifully pregnant. They were beautiful pregnant ladies, by the way. Absolutely glowing.
Grazie.
So my next question then is, you're pregnant, you're going through that process. You obviously have a child. Were there any things like body image things that you were worried about? Because like, look, I'm going to be completely open and honest to whoever is listening to this right now. I am terrified of giving up my body. I'm going to be completely honest about that. I've dealt with injuries. I've dealt with surgeries. I've dealt with having to get my body back from that kind of stuff. That's very much affected me from, you know, being in the athletic realm and like having to come back from those things emotionally, mentally, that I still deal with some of that today. So the idea of like giving up my body and not having that control terrifies me.
Yeah.
And I know that that's something like people are like, oh, you just do it and it's fine. But you guys know me. Lauren's laughing at me right now.
I'm not laughing at you.
Yeah, it's this idea at that I am being honest. It really scares me.
Yeah, it scared the hell
And then
out
it
of me.
scares me because, so tell me, like, what did you feel?
I mean, I was terrified from the get-go. It was scary. It was scary because, yes, I was petrified of being a pregnant person. And I wasn't afraid of losing like my body. I felt like, you know what, I'll get my body back to where it needs to be. It was more of the pain. What pains? This is unknown. And what I've learned is no matter what you read, no matter what they tell you, there's so much out there that's like, you know, you can read 80,000 comments on a Facebook post and be like, oh, okay, like that's, you know, interesting. But I think at the end of the day, until you actually experience, I think being pregnant, because every pregnancy I think is different. Like yours is different than mine. I had morning sickness, you didn't. Like, you know, I had like weird things happen like along the way, and but at the core of it, it was the unknown. And this is one thing I actually thought about mentioning, like when we talked about doing this. I was, you know, I kept going up to my mom and like to other moms and being like, okay, so how painful is labor?
Oh, please,
like, you know,
that even more so.
That was my fear.
Yeah.
Like from the it was just like, I'm afraid of pain and labor. And I know like you've seen movies, right? Everybody's like screaming their brains out and you're like, okay, am I really going to scream? Am I going to die? Like, you know, and my mom would never tell me. Like, she would just be like, it'll be fine. You just go through it. And she's like, no. She's like, you'll be fine. And I'm like, okay. And my mom is also someone who didn't have an epidural. Like, she had no
Same with
pain.
my mom.
Same with mine.
Okay.
4 babies, nothing.
Yeah, my mom had 2 kids, no
that
epidural.
generation, girls.
But again, that's why when we talked to her, you know, it's our bodies just
they do it.
Like I know for a fact our brains are programmed to forget
evolutionary.
it.
Yeah. I can't remember now.
No.
And
I want to have another baby.
Yeah.
I had an epidural.
I did. Oh yeah.
Highly recommend to everybody.
Yeah.
But it also wasn't as seamless as I thought it would. You know, it's still.
So did you? So okay. So you were obviously, Wendy, I'm assuming you were afraid a little bit.
Afraid of
the birth part?
Yeah, but I knew it was one of those things
happen.
where I was like, don't worry about what you can't control.
Yeah.
And I remember
Lauren
telling you
every
that.
day. I love that mentality. That's not,
And it was like, oh, you can take all these courses ahead to prepare for the birth. And I didn't do any of them because I was like, you know what?
I hear you.
I feel like we're built for this. And not to say that I wasn't scared.
Right. And to each their own. Some people, like, if they go and read all the books, they'll be happy they did it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, they get that level of comfort from that.
100%.
Yeah. Everybody's different. Their personalities in that sense. Yep. But yeah, no, the birth part, terrified. So
it is, and I'm not gonna lie, and you know, and anyone listening to this, it's scary because especially I think your first time, right? Because you have no idea, and like the person you're with, like your husband,
they don't know,
your girlfriend, whoever you're with, right? Like they don't know either,
right?
Like no one knows.
I'm sure.
I won't call it names. I don't know who it was, but somebody passed out. The male,
the male. Yeah, literally, she was like, "Here's our son. Where?
Oh my God, where'd he go?
No,
yeah, 100%.
He's under the bed.
Yeah, I won't say his name. Love you though.
Love you. I know I have to be careful on this thing sometimes because I'm like, I try to keep things as general for some topics because I'm like, they'll probably still know it's them, but okay. Right. So in reality, was it, or do you not remember now? Because now you're like a mom.
No, I do remember, and I will say.
You don't have to say anything specific. I'm just saying, was the experience different than what you thought it would be?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And Wendy, was it different than you thought it would be? and it doesn't have to be good or bad. What just was it different?
It was definitely, I mean,
aspects
of course
of
it was
yeah.
different.
Yeah.
It was different, but I would say I look back, and we could get into the like things that people don't talk about after,
like the gross,
you know, like
nasty things.
A lot
that,
of blood.
like,
Just
yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
like
It's
gonna
okay.
say it,
Yeah.
like
For
that you're
days
just dealing with.
Come on,
for
we can
days
talk
and
about
days.
periods
Yeah.
too now. Like, let's be like in the 21st century.
I mean, it's
right?
just like weeks and weeks, and you're like, oh my God, is this too much blood?
This
is not enough blood.
Am I okay?
I went to the hospital a week after I gave birth because I thought I was having
Something.
like a thing. Like there's, I forget what it's called, but there's like a term for like.
Right, and I think that's another thing. So
Scary.
you have the baby, you go through that trauma. No, go ahead.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I just have to add this for every girl that I didn't realize this, and partner, whoever's there with you, is the whole placenta aspect. So you have the baby.
Oh, the birthing
yeah.
of the placenta.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's a whole other thing that I had heard from a friend who had gone through a challenge with that, and she had to go into surgery, and they've said you might need a hysterectomy, and she was like, "Okay, bye." Like she went under, and then
didn't know what was going to happen.
She didn't know what was
going to
happen until she came out. But
Wow.
they have to move at that speed at that point,
Right.
Wow.
So just, you know,
Lots of
friendly
things.
reminder that you have
PSA.
the baby, and
Yeah.
then the placenta. It took about 45 minutes for her to like get it
Yeah.
out for me. And I, you know, again, I was prepared for that. That's, I
Yeah.
guess, the one thing I would say if you need to watch a class to remind yourself that part happens. But yeah,
Is there
and
any-
it was also a fear that I had.
Yeah.
Yes,
going into it.
absolutely. And that's a good point. Is there anything you would suggest for new moms, or even, you know, anything that you read, that you listened to? Because I know, Wendy, you're saying you basically didn't. You just kind of let it happen.
Yeah.
Is there anything, or you just think it's kind of like to each their own? Find out what works for your personality, what makes you comfortable, and kind of go that route? Or was there one piece of information, like you said, that's a good thing to know?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's little things. I mean, you can do your research, but don't let the research also terrify you at the same time.
good point.
Because
And a lot of times it does.
yeah, I mean, I'll say this one just specifically for me. Like, so about at the what checkup is it? Is it like the 5-month checkup or something, or the 6-month checkup I went to? Or no, sorry, the 26 weeks. The 26-week checkup, I think, is like they give you like the scan. Yeah, it's a bigger like confirmation of stuff. And they found this like super weird thing with me that apparently is like super rare. Like, you know, I Googled it and you couldn't even find, like, it wasn't on WebMD. It wasn't on any, like.
Did you try Bing?
No. Damn it, Bing. Damn it. I was totally going Google on this. Google let me down.
But point being, that would be interesting, because I bet you there is some helpful tools out there to sort through information.
100%.
Right,
So,
right.
Interesting. All right.
Totally.
So you're now new mommies. You love it? Do we?
Love it,
honest. No, I'm just
honestly.
kidding.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I mean, I think that's one thing that is just the thing that you don't realize going into it. I remember I delivered 2 weeks early, 10 days early. And I remember being like, oh, darn it, I would like him to just stay in there. Like, I'm not ready. Like, you know, you just kind of hear once they come, it's a craziness, and you don't sleep, blah, blah, blah. And also my maternity leave, I get like a month before prepartum, and if you don't use it, you lose it. So I was also mad in that sense. But anyways, no, it was fine. But then when he did come, it's just, I know everyone says it, but it really is a love unlike anything else. And you know, it does, you know, like what we were talking about, I could see why it causes people to potentially not focus on friendships, or, you know, because they feel so focused on this little human. And
well, that's what I wanted to segue into, and you keep going. But the idea of then now you have this child that you're taking care of and keeping alive. And obviously there are those amazing feelings of love and priorities. That definitely affects priorities in terms of your relationships. So you keep going, but then we can get into that.
It does. But at the same time, you know, you have to remember that they are going to grow up, right?
And then you're going to be alone
little humans
in the nursing home, and you meet your
exactly. Or even in, you know, 10 years, they're going to want to hang out with their friends. They're not going to want to hang out with mom as much as
Right.
like I probably would like to
You're
just
like
hang
trying
out
to
with
snuggle
him.
up in the
Yeah. So, you know, and that's not the only reason why you don't want to keep your relationships alive. Like, I think it's so important.
Absolutely.
Mentally,
I love this point.
physically.
Absolutely.
Yeah. 100%.
I love that point.
Yeah. So, I mean, and physically too, right? It's like you need to go out and feel like, you know, you can get dressed up and like feel confident and not feel like, oh, I'm only this mom that just is tending to this little human.
Right.
But at the same time, you do want to spend, you know, so much time with them to see them grow. So it's that balance.
Exactly.
It really
and
is,
I think
which
that
is hard.
goes back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of relationships and friendships and the healthy ones that allow that space and time for the ebb and flow of life. Right?
100%.
So like, and that's the same thing even in a romantic relationship. Like I know people always use the phrase 50-50. There may be a season, and my mom always mentions seasons. Funny, we're in church because the Bible talks about like the seasons of life all the time, right? But it's so true. There are seasons of life for every relationship. When you have a kid, this is a different season. And it's going to change things for different people. But again, there's ebbs and flows in life, and it doesn't mean it's a bad, negative thing. If you are in this state where you're a new mom and you are so in love with your child, that's what it should be, right? And the proper, or not proper, but I feel like those healthier relationships that you have, whether it's with friends or whoever, they understand that and they're happy for you. And it's a non-judgment, and it's like they're secure in themselves.
Right.
To see that and to be able to be okay with those changes. Like they don't take it personally. I think the bottom line is this idea that like in relation to other people, not everything is about you.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So like if I don't,
as
you think it is.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a difficult thing to kind of, and look, we're human. I still find things personal and then I have to get over it.
Yeah, of course.
But the idea of like in these different seasons of life, being able to deal with the ebb and flow of relationships. You know, somebody may be going through a difficult time at work for 7 months and you may have to pick up some slack.
Yep.
But because you're understanding and in a healthy way, understand that it's okay to be that way. You want to be supportive in that way.
Right.
Again, there are limits to things. I'm not saying it's always like you should be doing everything, but that's how relationships function.
Yep.
And I think understanding that is really helpful for when you have these shifts in life, like where you guys are new moms and I'm still single.
Right.
And I can understand that you have to go to whoever's house every time now for Christmas or whatever thing I usually saw you at, or we can't do this event this time because of something. Like it's not a personal thing and it's not forever.
Well,
you know, like
I mean,
things ebb and flow.
I think that's also something, not to be the like host for a minute, but I would love to kind of hear from you because I think it'll be important
switching
from
the
viewers.
Ooh, turn the tables.
Turn the
How
tide
the turntables.
Yeah.
Wait, what is it? How
If you're an Office fan, you
Let's
know
go.
that one. So.
How the
How the
turntables.
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 Wait.
dead.